it's important because your adult child is going to be so wrapped up in what they're doing and so initially emotional about it and worried and scared. It's like you have to like become the voice of reason. You have to become the voice of calmness, the voice of confidence for them, so that you can be there for them in a way that when they need you, you can be that kind of presence that settles it down and helps them to see that they're going to make it through. It's difficult I know a lot of times when grandparents live far away from their grandchildren and stuff, but there's lots of things that you can do even when far away to help. I think like one of the important functions of the grandparent is to provide hope. To provide hope to your adult child and to have hope in your grandchild. What do you want them to be? What do you want them most for your grandchild when they grow up? What kind of life do you want to have them to have? Those kind of things to think about are really can guide you and keep you from getting stuck. The other important reason that you should know all this stuff about the brain and everything is you might have the question, why is he doing that? Why is he moving like that? Why is he tantruming all the time? If you just stay up there in like this place, then you can't be a support to your children or your grandchild. Some of the things you might see in your grandchild that you should know is part of their autism, and it's not, again, something that they just are doing because they want to make life harder for people. It's just what they do. You may see that they play inappropriately with toys. They may line things up. They may get upset if somebody moves one of the things that they lined up. They may get fixated on parts of objects and like twirl the wheels of a car instead of playing with the car as intended, as a car. They may be hyperactive, like have a ton of energy, or they may be very passive. They don't really, I don't want to say care, but they're not really interested in their peers. They much prefer to play on their own. Especially if early on they're interested in electronics and games and stuff, it kind of feeds into that, I can be really happy and stay right here with this game. I don't have to interact with anyone. Interacting with people is hard. I think I'll stay here with my game. Inappropriate laughing or crying. Sometimes, everything can be going just fine and they'll just cry for no reason and you'll have no idea what they're upset about. I had one little boy that I worked with. He loved the Sesame Street videos. So as a reward, he would work for getting to see a Sesame Street video. And one of them, there was this part where somebody came out and played the piano, and it would make him cry every single time. And he couldn't tell me, what was upsetting to him about it. But it was just there was nothing. I tried to watch it and see, was it scary? What was it? This thing? I have no idea. Other times there might not even be anything in the environment. They just might, be on their own, and they seem happy and content one moment, and the next minute they're crying and upset. They may have a strange attachment to objects. One of the little boys that I work with loved his red sweater, and he would not take it off to save his life. And so we had to work on a whole procedure for helping him to get over that need to hold on to that object and have that be with him all the time. Poor speech or lack of speech. Difficulty dealing with changes to routines. I've had parents who go in the car with a child, and if they don't go the same way every day, the child will have a full-on tantrum in the backseat of the car, and it's like dangerous, like flailing and stuff. So change is hard, and that's something that we can work on as well. So even though you see all these things on here, all of these things are things that with appropriate intervention we can improve and we can help. I've never met a child who we haven't been able to positively affect their life in some really important way. So when you see all these things, and especially as a newly diagnosed grandparent, I just want to say it's important you know these things, so when you see it, you're not, you're aware of that's what it is. It's because of the autism, so you're not blaming the child, and so you can support your adult child. But it's important for you to know that information. But I don't want you to feel like this is so much, like how are we going to get through this? There's so much help out there now than there was like even a couple years ago. Some behaviors that your grandchild may display, again, the lack or impaired speech, limited or fleeting eye contact, repetitive or odd play, lining up. I had one little boy that liked to sort everything by color. And if you put another colored block in, like a yellow block with it in the green blocks, full out tantrum, because you've disrupted the order of what he was doing. Resist or have difficulty with changes in routines or transitions. It's like, so for instance, I had a young man that I worked with in 3rd grade, and he was very what I call rule governed. So he was higher functioning, is verbal. He was actually in a typical 3rd grade classroom, and I came in to observe that he was having tantrums like all of a sudden. It turned out he was watching the clock, and the teacher had the schedule for the day on the board, and he would look, and he'd be looking at her, and he'd be looking at and he would be like, "Miss so-and-so, it's 10 o'clock. We are supposed to be outside on recess." And it's like he wanted her to stay within that routine and do it exactly the way it was supposed to be done. And if she strayed from that or moved away from that at all, it would be very upsetting to him. A need for sameness, things to be in their place. When I think of kids with autism, is that I think a lot of their behavior and stuff is anxiety-based. It's like an attempt to gain control, some sense of control over an environment that they just do not understand. And if I can keep this thing in order, then that rest of the world is not as scary. And then you come and take that one thing away from me that's like my grounding post, then I'm lost. So it's important to know this so that, again, you're not judging your grandchild for these behaviors, these challenges that they're facing. Frequent or intense tantrums, limited or fleeting interest in peers, no fear of danger. This is a really important one, a safety one. I had kids who just, they don't see traffic coming. You're in a parking lot and they just, you have to fiercely hold onto their hand because they're not really attuned to what's going on in the environment. Again, things that we can work on. Echo statements of others or videos. And this is called echolalia. It can be statements or a single word that a child repeats over and over. And it's usually a phrase that they've heard somebody else say or they've seen in a video. So for instance, I had a little boy who loved watching Winnie the Pooh. And one day his class had a fire alarm outside, and it was in the fall. This is back in Connecticut. So we all went out in the park, the grass area, and there's all these leaves blowing around, and he says, "It's a windy and blustery day," and it seemed appropriate, but it was a total script. It was exactly what Winnie the Pooh says every time he watches it. So he's chunked that little piece of information and he's applied it in a way, but in a way it's not so great because it's keeping him from being able to normalize his speech a little bit more because it takes up his availability to be interacting with other people. The other thing that they can do sometimes, one of the things they can do that's not on here is called pronoun reversal. And one of the things I try to explain to parents is that usually, because learning language is difficult for kids on a spectrum, when something is highly desirable, they may learn to ask for it with a reverse pronoun because someone has asked them over and over again, "Do you want a goldfish?" And so he'd walk up to the parent and say, "Do you want a goldfish?" Not, "I want a goldfish." They would say, "Do you want a goldfish?" Because that's the way it's been said to them. So they reverse that pronoun because that's how they've heard it. And so that's also called chunking. They chunk phrases, and that's the way that they remember them in context. Spins or lines up objects. Hand flapping is another one. It's really interesting though too because a lot of this is like an immature nervous system in a way because you see little kids do a lot of these things, right? In excitement and stuff like that. It just differs in intensity and frequency and duration. Those are the 3 things that it differs in than typical development. So in other words, a typical child might jump up and down, go "yay" and be done, but a child with autism is going to do that, for an extended period of time. Finger play, flicking or distorting fingers, and by distorting fingers, I mean I've seen kids twist their fingers over and over and over like that, and hold it really tightly, and then you can't get them to release it. Toe walking, like I talked about before, rocking back and forth, and this could be either seated or standing, and it can be back and forth on your feet like this, or it can just be, rocking forward and back. Marked physical overactivity or passivity, and an insensitivity to pain. I've seen kids who they come in with a total gashed leg from the playground, and they have no sensation that they've hurt themselves. So that's one of the things we have to help them with as well. Difficulty learning through normal teaching methods. That's the big thing, is that group learning in school is all language-based. all language-based from a very young age. And so that means that learning in that environment is tough when you have a difficult time understanding language. So you might have to initially use other treatment methods to be able to help them be able to benefit from that environment in the future. So they may act as if deaf. We already went over that. They seem to look through people and not at them. They'll use people as tools to get their needs met. So they're not verbal, but they take your hand over to the cabinet and they put your hand on the door, and then you open the door and and then they put your hand, and they don't get it themselves, and they're not going to point really so much at what they want, but they use you, as a tool to get their needs met. So I hate to say it in a way, it's like we're just as important as other things in their environment that just, they want to be able to interact with the way they want to interact with. And the other thing too is that, and this wasn't on here, is that they have a over-selectivity to different types of things. So for instance, I have contacts in now, but I used to wear glasses pretty much all the time when I did therapy and stuff. And one day I went to see a client, I didn't have my glasses on, and he called me the other therapist's name with long brown hair, because he had used just my glasses to distinguish me. He'd hyper-focused just on that so he could, have an idea of who I was. And once I took that one thing away, he didn't know who I was. So, I got him to know who I was eventually, but that kind of hyper-focus on detail rather than the whole picture. That's why they do the spinning of the wheels of the car and stuff like that. Some children can be aggressive or self-injurious, and even, I've worked with kids, as young as 2 that have hellacious tantrums. Amazing that this little 2-year-old has such tantrums. But yeah, those things can occur, and most of the time, those type of behaviors, they're caused by what we call, they function for the child in some way. We call it functional communication. So like a tantrum is usually telling you something. It's telling you, I want to get out of here. I don't want to do this. I want that. You won't let me have it. This is too hard. It's usually like the 4 main functions of behavior. So whatever their behavior is, you've got to figure out what it is that they're trying to communicate, and then you'll be able to help them with not having to display that behavior anymore. Because there's such a thing called the effort principle, is that if something is easier to do, then I'm going to do that thing first rather than do the hard thing. So if I have to tantrum for 10 minutes and scream and cry and get all like hot, and everything to get my way, or if I just learn how to approach someone with a picture card of what I want, that's the easier thing. That's the easier effort, easier lower level of effort needed to do it. So they'll move to that. But grandparents too have a very different reaction to in where they come in with the diagnosis. And I was reading the story where this parent was saying, my mother basically told us that we shouldn't come anymore to family events until he was older. And I was I almost start crying when I read it, because I'm not thinking that the grandmother's horrible. It's like she doesn't have what she needs to cope with the autism, and she's doing what she can do, which is, I can't deal with this right now, and so I'm not gonna deal with it, So the more you know about autism, the less you will feel scared, and the less you will feel like there's nothing that you can do. So one of the most important things to know is your grandchild is not being willfully disobedient. And I always say, their brain is doing mental Olympics. That's what I call it. If you can imagine that every moment of every day, you're trying to figure out the environment and how stressful that would be. That's what their life is like every day, trying to make sense of things and trying to keep homeostasis. Don't take their reactions or lack of reactions personally. It's not intentional on their part at all. So if you say, hi Joey, and Joey runs away and doesn't say hi, you feel, he rejected me. No, he didn't reject me. He just doesn't know how to say hi to you back yet. It's not a skill he doesn't have yet. So don't take those reactions personally, because it's not, he just doesn't have that skill yet. That's all it is. The brain of an individual with autism is not very flexible, as we discussed. They like the routines and everything, but your brain is. All your brains are very flexible. I saw someone come in and they had their seat moved, and he coped with that very nicely. All right, okay, yeah, I'm just going to move right over here. Yay, good job coping. He's got great coping skills and flexibility, right? You guys all do too. Best laid plans can be not ruined, can have to change in a moment, and you got to learn how to be okay with that. If you guys are all planning to go out to dinner somewhere, and a mighty tantrum happens, you have to be able to shift gears and do what you need to do to get, and make a decision about how you're going to move forward with that. So flexibility is really key, and that needs to be okay that things can change. As grandparents, you have a lifetime of experience about how hard life can be and how difficult it can be and how you need to overcome adversity and overcome difficulties. You learn those skills over time. And remember, they always say that some things are really, they become common things because it's true. Like, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. I remember when I was in my teens, I'd be like, I don't want to get stronger. I just want things my way, and I want it now. I want it to happen the way I want. So I didn't like that at all when I was young. But one of the things that I've realized as I've gotten older is that it's those times when we're facing something really difficult and we overcome it, that we feel that true happiness, that true sense of joy in our life, because we see ourselves having the power to overcome difficult situations. Autism is not an easy life challenge. I mean, we have life challenges all the time. It is a journey, a long journey. At different stages of life, there's going to be new issues that come up that you didn't even realize you'd have to face. So you come along and he wasn't talking, now he's talking, and then there's something else happens along the way, and now we've got to work on that thing. So it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You got to pace yourselves. And also, I didn't put in here, but you guys really have to take care of yourselves too, in some way, so that you can be present for your family as much as you possibly can, because they need you. They need your support, they need your guidance, they need your wisdom about life. So I put on here a quote about the strength is the source of happiness, not shying away from life's challenges. Okay? If you can embrace that spirit, you'll have your grandchild will have unlimited happiness, for sure. When I was working with adults with Asperger's, this was the most striking thing to me, was that most of these kids had no ability to cope with failure, no ability to follow through to something to the end. So in other words, a well-meaning parent pretty much does for the child instead of having the child do it and learn to do it themselves. So, and there's always a feeling about, well, his life is so hard. He has autism. We have to make it a little bit easier for him. That kind of feeling does not help the grandchild at all. You have to believe in your grandchild's potential and that he can do things, or she can do things. And she will. It might just take a little bit longer, might have to get extra support, but definitely will.